Chapter 91 Reorganizing the Team. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Che put away the letter and got ready to leave. Minato raised a hand, stopping him. One more thing. Che looked at him, a question in his eyes. Minato continued, the Inuzuka Paladin team was wiped out. That leaves a vacancy, and since you're already a Jonin, I was thinking you could form a team. Think of it as a reorganization of the Inuzuka Paladin team. Che asked, who picks the candidates? That's up to you. Here's a list of volunteers. You can check them out. Or choose someone else entirely. Minato handed Che the roster. Che took the list and left. Truth was, Che wasn't thrilled about rebuilding the team. He was done worrying about the battlefield situation. That was the brass's problem. Che just wanted to focus on his training. He'd already surpassed his previous peak, and that had reignited his ambition. He wanted to get stronger. Still, if there were some interesting candidates on that list, Che might be persuaded to form a squad. Back in the empty camp, he could almost still smell the sweat of the Inuzuka Paladin team. Che shook his head, then sat down at the small table in the corner and set the list aside. He took out a pen and paper and, first thing, wrote a reply to Hong, after carefully crafting his response. To Hong, he dashed off a few more letters to let other people know he was safe. Then Che picked up the list Minato gave him and started looking it over. Mostly, it was filled with the names of young ninjas. A lot of them were probably applying to be under Che's command because they admired his reputation. There were a few names Che recognized. Che circled the three most familiar ones, grabbed the list and the reply letters, and headed back to Minato's camp. You're back. Made your picks. Minato was sitting behind his desk, looking up at Che. Che handed him the stack of letters first. Yeah, but first, could you do me a favor and send these back to Konoha? Then he handed over the list. Minato nodded, set the letters aside, and took the list. Huh. Minato looked surprised when he saw the three circled names. What's wrong? Can't I choose them? Che asked. Minato replied, No, it's not that. Sarutobi Asuma, Uchiha Tonghua, and Uchiha Tiehua. They were all in your class, and two of them are from your clan. Makes sense you'd pick them. Minato was also thinking, 3 Uchiha and 1 Sarutobi. That's a combination you don't see every day. Che thanked Minato and left the camp. Personnel transfers during wartime happened fast. The next day, Che's 3 team members arrived at the Yuno defense line camp. Che, bro. Uchiha Tonghua made a beeline to hug Che, but Che held him back. Long time no see, man. You're being kinda cold, Tonghua said, disappointed. With sly eyes, he poked at the limitless gap between him and Che and said in surprise, What is this? Could it be that the elder brother has mastered another special skill? Che said calmly, the blood inheritance limit. Tonghua immediately gave a thumbs up and said, I knew that my eldest brother is a handsome and talented man, and he will definitely become the strongest Uchiha in history. Che ignored Tonghua's bragging and waved his hands to look at the remaining 2 people. Asuma was looking at the surrounding camp absent-mindedly, while Taihua honestly called Che big brother. Che nodded slightly in greeting, then looked at Asuma and said, What are you looking at? Asuma. Asuma came to his senses and replied, I was just observing. After all, it is my first time on the battlefield. Then let me take you around the camp. Che came to the 3 of them and said. Okay, big brother. Tonghua followed behind Che. We use ranks in the army, Che corrected. Tonghua was the first to change his words. Yes, Captain Che. Tiehua also called him captain. After all, the 2 of them had been called eldest brother since they were young, so they didn't have much baggage. Asuma held back for a while before he could say the word captain. After all, he and Che were once classmates, so it was a bit awkward to say it. Che smiled slightly and said, There is no one around now, so there is no need to be so serious. Asuma immediately said speechlessly, You just teased me like this when we first met, right? Haha, how can you call it a clean slate? By the way, I received the letter you wrote. Have you received my reply? Che asked with a smile. Asuma nodded and said, It was given to me when we were on the way. Che nodded slightly and said, when I wrote that letter, I had not thought that you would come to my team. Does your father know about this? Asma replied, I approached him before to apply to join the Northeast Defense Line Force, but when I came to your team, he probably didn't know. At least I didn't tell him. Che glanced at the Uchiha Copper Fire and Uchiha Iron Fire beside him, and then said to Asuma, I'm afraid if he knew, you wouldn't come in so easily. Asuma asked in confusion, why? Che took a deep look at Asuma and realized in his heart that the conflict between Uchiha and Konoha's top management had not yet become public knowledge. After all, Asuma is just a young chunin in his early teens and has not yet been exposed to these. Even if his father is the third Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, this chapter is not over. Please click on the next page to continue reading. Che shook his head and said, nothing. By the way, we're in the southwest corner of the camp right now. Orochimaru's camp is right over there. Che suddenly launched into a tour, which struck Asuma as weird. He frowned but didn't push it. Copperhua and Taihua listened carefully, but compared to the taciturn Taihua was more out of the box. Tonghua asked expectantly, then when can we go to the battlefield? Che glanced at Tonghua and realized that this young man, like most young ninjas who had just entered the battlefield, was filled with the desire to make achievements. Che glanced at Taihua again and saw that Taihua's heart was actually the same as Tonghua's, but he didn't show it. Che glanced at Asma one last time, and Asma seemed to have the idea of coming to Che's command to make great achievements, so Che said, I don't know, everything needs to be controlled by Teacher Minato. But now that the battle with Kyumo Ninja has entered a stalemate, I'm afraid there is not much chance that our forward troops will directly enter the battlefield. Basically, they are reconnaissance missions that do not involve enemy contact. This answer disappointed all three of them. Aren't the forward troops supposed to be the first to see action? Asma asked. Che added, that's when the two sides are slugging it out head-on. Right now, Kyumo Ninja had taken 3 losses. A night raid on their camp, a general assault repelled, and a landing force defeated. Their initial momentum had fizzled out. Even with superior numbers, they'd lost the will for a large-scale attack. As the saying goes, easy come, easy go. Chapter 92 One God Brings 3 Pits. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Those who romanticize war have usually never seen it. Asuma, Copper Fire, and Iron Fire definitely fell into that category. That's why Che had tried to talk them out of going, but he'd underestimated the eagerness of youth. Asuma had insisted, even so, I'll prove myself on the battlefield. Not to be outdone, Copper Fire declared, don't underestimate the Uchiha. This recon mission is a piece of cake. Iron Fire, rarely one for words, simply added, me too. Che just sighed, knowing he'd wasted his breath. He felt like he was wrangling a bunch of unruly kids, and instantly regretted agreeing to Minato's team reorganization. That afternoon, Che received orders. His team was to head to the Land of Woods border to investigate Kyumo Ninja activity. Che easily packed his gear. He watched Asuma and the others fussing around the camp for ages before finally emerging, loaded down with a bulging bag of ninja tools. Recon missions are about traveling light. Forget it. Just have fun. Che relented. Asuma followed Che, practically bursting with enthusiasm, while Copper Fire and Iron Fire looked giddy. As members of the Uchiha clan, Copper Fire and Iron Fire were practically destined for the police force. They'd spend their days stuck in the village, dealing with low-risk police matters. That's why they treasured this chance to experience the battlefield during wartime. As the Hokage's son, Asuma had always been sheltered, so he was predictably overexcited about going into real combat. Che led the team to the Land of Woods border. The trees were starting to thin out, and the flat highland just ahead marked the border of the Land of Frost. Che perched in a tree, pulled out his notebook, and started recording information. He was just counting how many Kyumo ninjas crossed the border. Che could easily wipe out these border crossers, but he figured sticking to the mission was the path of least resistance, so he stayed put, logging intel. Che's temperament allowed him to suppress the urge to fight. The 3 young chunin beside him, however, were a different story. Che, let's go get them. Instead of scribbling in that notebook, we could be taking them out, Asuma said, walking over to Che. Copper Fire and Iron Fire nodded in agreement. 2 jonin, for chunin, and 6 genin on the other side. We're 1 Jonin and 3 Chunin. How's that gonna work? Che asked. Asuma looked surprised. Aren't you here? Che replied calmly, what if? I wasn't here. Che was strong enough to obliterate the group in front of them. Asuma knew that, which was why he was so eager for Che to act, but Che's words gave him pause. Yeah, when did I start, relying on Che's power like this? Asuma wondered to himself. Seeing Asuma reflecting, Che continued logging data. Copper Fire, confused, asked, Bro, what are you talking about? You are Che, right? Che said patiently, if you only rely on my strength, you'll never grow. Copper Fire's expression shifted as he also fell into thought. Iron Fire chimed in, he's right, you know. Che nodded approvingly and went back to his recording, but sometimes, trouble finds you, even when you're not looking for it. A small unit of 12 Cloud Ninja spotted Che and his team and headed straight for them. It seemed Asuma and the others had been a little too loud asking Che questions. Che sighed. In that case, I guess I'll give you the opportunity you've been waiting for. Che, who'd only wanted to finish the mission and go home, was now being forced into action. Facing enemies like this, Che couldn't even be bothered to get excited. He leaped from the branch and shot toward the Cloud Ninja unit with incredible speed. Che hovered in the air, holding 2 Kumogakure Jonin by the wrists. Let's not interfere with the rookie's performance, he said. The 2 Kumo ninjas quickly drew their swords to fight back, but their blades couldn't even touch Che. Che raised his fingers and used his chakra to pull the 2 Jonin and 6 Genin up into the flat highlands of the Land of Frost. The 4 Kumogakure Chunin left behind looked like they'd seen a ghost. One of them suddenly shouted, it's the white-haired demon Eye. Why does he look like a ghost? Another was still shaken by Che's sudden appearance. Why did he let us go? Another realized. Someone's coming. The last one spotted Asuma and the others. Fire style, ash pile burning. Asuma unleashed a blast of hot ash. The Cloud Ninjas dodged, meaning only one enemy was slightly injured. The remaining Kumogakure Chunin were a handful for Asuma's team. Asuma pulled out his flying swallow blade and charged in. Wind style, whirlwind fist. The fierce wind swept away the lingering heat from his earlier attack. At the same time, Copper Fire and Iron Fire stood guard beside Asuma, throwing kunai at the other Kumo ninja. Asuma held his own against 2 Kumogakure Chunin while Copper Fire and Iron Fire dealt with the others. Asuma was stronger than the average Chunin, but struggling against 2 opponents. Luckily, his wind release techniques countered their thunder release, so he could hold them back. Copper Fire and Iron Fire were holding their own, too. The fight raged on. Thunder release, surge. The 2 Kumo ninjas used their thunder release jutsu, hoping to break through Asuma's wind release enhanced fists. Instead of dodging, Asuma charged forward. Chakra blade, single line cut. The flying swallow blade in Asuma's hand suddenly extended into a sharp wind blade, cutting through their thunder chakra defense and into their chests, killing them. The remains of the thunder attack hit Asuma, causing him to collapse. The enemy facing Copper Fire made a mistake. Copper Fire's Sharingan saw it, and he threw a kunai, hitting the enemy's throat. The enemy facing Iron Fire raised his sword to strike Iron Fire's head. Seeing his brother in danger, Copper Fire rushed forward. Iron Fire, as he did, his Sharingan evolved to 2 Tomo. However, the enemy turned and slashed at Copper Fire instead. Cloud-style decapitation. The Cloud Ninja grinned, thinking he'd won. Copper Fire's newly evolved Sharingan allowed him to react, but he was a half-beat too slow. Thwack, star. Copper Fire was stabbed in the chest. Brother. Seeing this, Iron Fire's Sharingan also evolved. He exploded with speed, sticking a kunai into the Kumo ninja's waist. The enemy fell forward. Copper Fire grabbed the enemy's sword and plunged it into his neck. Che, who'd finished his fight and been watching from the highlands, walked over. So, do you have any better idea of what war is now? Chapter 93 The Role of Companions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Asuma, her body stiff and numb, forced herself to her feet, kneeling with her head bowed, silent. Taihua rushed to Tonghua, panicked as he checked his injury, but only made Tonghua grit his teeth in pain. Bro. We screwed up. Without you, we'd be toast against these guys. Tonghua said, Blaming himself, Tonghua brushed off his injuries, more shaken that Taihua had been in danger. Taihua's eyes were red. "I'm sorry, man. If you hadn't saved me, you wouldn't have gotten hurt. It's just a scratch, ow." Tonghua said, wincing, "Non-fatal, but it could get worse without treatment," Che said in a deep voice. "Okay, we're heading back to camp for treatment. It's nothing serious." Che's reversal technique only worked on himself, or he would have healed him in a snap. Taihua wiped his tears and nodded, supporting Tonghua, who grumbled, "Idiot, my leg isn't broken, I don't need help." Taihua immediately pulled his hand back, like he'd done something wrong. Tonghua realized his tone had been harsh and sensed his brother's feelings. He softened, saying patiently, "Okay, I don't blame you for this. I'm guessing that Yunin was gunning for me in the first place." Taihua nodded silently. Tonghua playfully wrapped an arm around Taihua's neck, leaning on him. Okay, my bad. I know you care." Taihua's face relaxed. He looked up at Tonghua seriously. "Bro, I'm not letting you get hurt for me again." Tonghua was taken aback for a moment, then smiled. "Wow, you're growing up." Che turned to Asuma. "Let's go, Asuma." "What are you still kneeling for?" Asuma stood, looking dazed. It had been his first real fight with ninjas of the same caliber from the other major villages. Asuma, realizing his weakness, murmured, "I'm definitely too weak." Che reassured him, "Hey, you took down 2 Chunin." Asuma started to say something else. Che raised a hand to stop him. "I've told you before, don't compare yourself to me." Asuma sighed. "I'm not competing with you, it's just." Che's blue eyes locked onto Asuma. "Yeah, even if you're not comparing yourself to me, there are plenty of guys stronger than you." Che laid down the hard truth. Asuma's eyes flickered, stung by the words he didn't want to hear. "So what? Everyone needs to get stronger, even me. If I'd been strong enough back then, I could have saved the Inuzuka Paladin team and stopped them from dying on the Tiano country coast. Even though I've gotten stronger, I still want to be stronger. And now I realize that it's not just me who needs to improve, but my teammates too. We can't change Uchiha and Konoha relying on my strength alone. Asuma, Tonghua, Taihua, you're all approved teammates." Che's words made Asuma and the others look at him. Che knew he couldn't change Uchiha and Konoha by himself. Maybe with his current strength, surpassing his previous life, he could take out Konoha's leadership, but then what? Konoha would hate him and the Uchiha. Che wanted to cultivate a group of strong, intelligent allies to change the fate of Uchiha and Konoha together, and the fact that these 3 were on Che's list meant they were already in the running. "Get stronger, at least, don't fall too far behind me." Che said sincerely. Hearing this, Asuma's eyes shifted from confusion to resolve. Tonghua dropped his usual sly attitude and became uncharacteristically quiet. Taihua, deeply moved, exclaimed, "Bro. I won't let you down." Che smiled. "Hey, no need to get so serious. Just speaking from the heart. Everyone knows how important it is to get stronger, but sometimes things get in the way. Now that you're on my team, I'll take responsibility as captain. If you need help, come to me." Che's words showed the responsibility and demeanor of a captain. Asuma and the others felt that Che wasn't just a young genius anymore, he was a mature ninja who'd seen the battlefield. Though, in a way, he'd been mature since he was a kid. Asuma, Tonghua, and Taihua all nodded seriously. The 4 of them then headed back to the Konoha camp. Taihua took Tonghua to the medical ninjas for treatment, while Che and Asuma waited outside. Che took the initiative. "How's the Rasengan training coming?" Asuma raised his hand, showing off a ball-sized Rasengan. "Not bad." Che glanced at it with his 6 eyes. "Stability could still be improved, but it's acceptable. Have you thought about injecting wind release chakra into the Rasengan?" "Wind release?" Asuma was surprised at first, then he understood. "Yeah, the Rasengan would be perfect for wind release. If you combine extreme chakra shape transformation with chakra nature transformation, you can definitely take it to the next level." "That's you, Che. Genius idea." Che smiled slightly. It's a genius idea, but it's not mine. Minato-sensei suggested it. He wanted me to study the changes in the Rasengan's wind release chakra with him. You happen to be the most talented wind release ninja I know. I think you can help. Asuma, pleased with the recognition, said excitedly, "Don't worry, I'll work on it seriously." Che nodded slightly. Just then, Tonghua came out, bandaged up. Che said, "Today's mission is over. You can stay in camp and recover." After that, Che left alone. Reaching an uninhabited area, Che activated his 3 Magatama Sharingan. He noticed his Sharingan seemed a bit blue from the fusion with the 6 eyes, and the basic functions were improved, which would greatly help with ninjutsu development. Che held out the Rasengan. In the fight, he tried to combine the Rasengan and aim, but failed. He wanted to try again alone. The Rasengan spun in his hand. He raised it, then simultaneously released Song from that hand. The blue intertwined with the Rasengan's blue. Che adjusted Song's attraction from outside to inside, with the center exactly matching the Rasengan center, and the attraction range matching the Rasengan's radius. The clear chakra of the Rasengan began to gather inward, and the color changed from light to dark. The basketball-sized Rasengan shrunk into a dark blue sphere the size of an egg. Che slammed it into a tree. Boom! The tree shattered, and the remaining power kept going, destroying 10 more trees behind it. The chakra consumption hadn't changed, but the power had increased dramatically due to compression. Che saw the potential in this. Leaving the wind release Rasengan to Asuma was the right move. That way, I can focus on combining no lower limit and the Rasengan. Che realized the role of teammates once again. Chapter 94 Winter Offensive. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the days that followed, Asuma and the others became much more open with each other. They trained with Che every day. Alongside their regular duties, Asuma focused on developing the wind release Rasengan. Copper Fire, proficient in both fire and earth release, practiced ninjutsu using those 2 elements. Taihua, on the other hand, dedicated himself entirely to fire release. Che primarily worked on merging no lower limit with the Rasengan, and experimenting with using no lower limit for space-time manipulation, an idea sparked by Minato's Flying Thunder God technique. This peaceful routine continued for months. Initially, Asuma and the others might have found the quiet life unbearable, however. After their encounter on that reconnaissance mission, Asuma, Copper Fire, and Iron Fire understood the true meaning of war, diligently balancing peaceful training with their duties. As winter deepened, the forests of Yuno country grew increasingly cold. The year was now Konoha 49. During this time, the Cloud Ninja seemed to have quieted down considerably. It appeared they were waiting for spring before launching another attack. Then came another routine reconnaissance mission. Team Che found themselves at the northern border of Tang country, this time scouting a slightly unusual location in the northwest coastal region. Ha ha ha. Copper Fire, bored on patrol, let out a yawn. Taihua, ever vigilant, scanned their surroundings with a watchful eye. He was always meticulous about his tasks. Asuma, breathing heavily, cupped her hands to her mouth for warmth. It's freezing. Che casually spun a leaf in his palm, the leaf twirling in the air, illuminated by the blue light emanating from his hand. With his automatic no lower limit activated, Che was shielded from the cold, feeling none of the winter's bite. Hang in there, spring's just around the corner, Che told Asuma. Asuma, bundled in a brown leather coat with a warm white fur collar, still shivered from time to time. She eyed Che, who was wearing the thin white shirt Hong had bought him in the fall, along with a black jacket bearing the Uchiha family crest, seemingly unaffected by the cold. You wear the same clothes all year round, Asuma grumbled, and you're complaining about the cold? Seriously, Che waved his hand dismissively. Since mastering the automatic no lower limit, he lived a life of ease, insulated from the extremes of both winter and summer. Suddenly, Che turned sharply, gazing towards the border. Someone's coming, he announced decisively. You guys need to head back now. Asuma drew her kunai. We're not helpless anymore. We can help you. Copper Fire and Iron Fire nodded in agreement. Che countered, there are 1,000 of them. Are you sure you can handle that? Asuma and the others fell silent. That's impossible. Since winter began, Kumo's attacks have been minimal, maybe a dozen at most. There's no way. Asuma struggled to believe that the Cloud Ninja would launch a 1,000-man attack in the dead of winter. Chase stared intently at Asuma with his blue eyes. I'm telling you, I saw it with my own eyes. Seeing his unwavering gaze, Asuma had no choice but to believe him. Copper Fire and Iron Fire trusted Che implicitly. They were no longer naive newcomers to the battlefield, understanding that staying would only hinder Che. Asuma and the others didn't argue. They turned and rushed towards the rear. Che then stepped out of the woods, prepared to face the approaching 1,000-man troop of Kumo ninja. The enemy force was moving rapidly, clearly composed of elite soldiers. The size of the force, 1,000, was carefully chosen. It was large enough to cause significant damage but not so large as to trigger a full-scale alert from Konoha. Their choice of location, the remote northwest corner of the defense line, was also strategic. Had Che not been patrolling there, they could have easily eliminated the reconnaissance team and slipped past the defenses undetected, launching a direct assault on the Konoha camp. This appeared to be Kumogakure's meticulously planned winter offensive. Che stood alone at the edge of the Tang country forest, a solitary figure facing an army. AI led the charge of the Kumo ninja troops. The instant AI saw Che, he activated his lightning release armor, leaving no room for complacency. AI halted, and the surrounding Kumogakure forces came to a stop as well. Long time no see, AI. I thought you'd learned your lesson, Che said as he slowly advanced towards him. Hatred burned in AI's eyes as he glared at Che, offering no response. I heard that your village's eight-tails Jinchuriki survived. It was a careless mistake on my part that allowed him to escape, Che continued, his voice dripping with contempt. AI gritted his teeth. Yes. I ordered Bai to return to the land of lightning to train. One day, you'll pay the price. AI valued Kurabi as a brother. Learning that Kurabi had narrowly escaped from the battlefield had left him shaken. He had ordered Kurabi to seclude himself in Yunlei Gorge to train, both to help him recover the power he had lost and to protect him. Ha 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 ha. Che suddenly erupted in villainous laughter. Perfect. I'll be waiting for him. It'll save me the trouble of traveling all the way to the land of lightning to take his life. Only villains give others a chance to grow, but that was Che's intent. He wanted Kurabi to believe he was ready for revenge after countless hours of training, only to crush those hopes, inflicting the most devastating psychological blow. It was an idea that defied common sense, but it was based on Che's unwavering confidence in his own strength. Che pointed two fingers at AI, the hair on AI's neck stood on end. *whip. Red light condensed at Che's fingertips, then exploded outward. AI reacted instantly, arcs of lightning erupting from his body as he dodged away, but the Cloud Ninja behind AI weren't so lucky. A gaping hole tore through the dense ranks of the Kumo forces. Several were killed outright, and dozens more were caught in the blast radius. For Che, it had been nothing more than a casual attack. Spread out. Everyone spread out. AI shouted in a panic. Che continued to raise his hand, bombarding the Cloud Ninja troops. A searingly hot force was unleashed, its immense repulsive power collapsing inward before exploding, ripping bloody gaps through the enemy ranks. Scattered among the carnage were the mangled limbs and broken bodies of Cloud Ninjas, their deaths horrific. The Kumo Ninja scattered in all directions, gripped by terror. AI watched in stunned disbelief. He never imagined that their carefully planned winter offensive would run headfirst into Che, Kumogakure's personal harbinger of doom. Retreat! AI shouted. Despite his reluctance, the heavy casualties and Che's unfathomable power left him no choice. He had to order a retreat, to minimize further losses. AI rushed toward Che, determined to delay him. Che turned and smiled slightly. I've been waiting for you. *whip. Che abruptly flicked his fingers, striking AI with another blast. AI cried out as his body was sent hurtling backwards. Chapter 95. The front line was defeated and the home was stolen. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I watched AI get blasted back dozens of yards by he, completely losing his footing. The thunder release chakra around AI prevented him from being torn apart like other Kumo ninjas, but he was still seriously injured. His white vest was shredded, revealing a gruesome scar on his chest. Blood dripped onto the ground, forming a small pool at his feet. Huff! AI gasped, finally understanding the kind of monster Kurabi had faced. Looking around, AI saw that the Kyumo ninjas were completely routed, but this just made them easier targets for Che. In order to cover the army's retreat, he had to buy them time. AI pushed his thunder chakra to its limit, becoming a blur as he zipped around Che. It was an old trick, but surprisingly effective. Che activated his three-tomo Sharingan, partially tinged blue by the six eyes. He could see AI's movements clearly, but even Song and Hidu found it hard to land a hit. While moving, AI snatched a fallen shuriken, charged it with thunder chakra, and threw it at Che as a test. At the same time, he circled around behind him, thunder release. AI's lightning shuriken struck the back of Che's neck, while another flew toward his face. AI knew Che had some kind of blocking ability, but he didn't know its limits, so he planned to probe it with a series of attacks. Unfortunately, Che's unlimited technique was flawless and constant. AI's attack failed, and the strange sensation of pause made his heart sink. He immediately backed off, preparing to retreat. He was now certain he couldn't beat Che in his current state, but Che wasn't about to let AI leave that easily. Song, starred a blue orb began to engulf AI's feet. This is it. AI thought grimly as Che turned to face him, a Rasengan crackling in his hand. AI expected the Rasengan to be blocked as before, but the color was different, darker, dark blue spiral. Bang! The dark blue spiral slammed into AI's chest, sending him flying again. The raw chakra surging from the deep blue vortex overwhelmed AI's thunder chakra defense. This time, the dark blue spiral blasted a bloody hole through his chest, exposing the white ribs underneath. Che clicked his tongue. Guess I need to amp up the power. Still not that much stronger than he at close range. This dark blue spiral was only the size of a ball, but its compression required dozens of times more chakra than a regular Rasengan. The result was disappointing, at least for Che. However, this disappointing blow knocked AI senseless. As his life hung in the balance, AI remembered his father's gentle words. Despite appearing as a violent man, the third Raikage was a gentle and loving teacher to his son. AI also thought of his adopted brother, Kurabi. They had an instant connection, and the Abbey team was renowned throughout the ninja world. They were the best partners anyone could ask for. Fueled by these memories, AI found renewed resolve, ignoring the gaping wound in his chest to buy more time for the retreating troops. Seeing AI wasn't giving up, Che lost interest in dragging out the fight. He began gathering chakra in his hands, channeling it continuously. With the aid of the six eyes, Che's chakra control was incredibly precise. He formed a massive Rasengan, almost the size of a room. Then, using Tsang, Che compressed the huge Rasengan down to the size of a basketball. The core of this dark blue spiral was so compressed that it started to glow red. Che raised the dark blue spiral, aimed it at the ground in front of AI, and slammed it down. Boom. The force ripped apart the earth, unleashing a storm of gravel, the air filled with debris, each rock packing the power of a bullet. Che turned and left, not bothering to look back. If AI somehow survived, that was on him. Ever since awakening the three-tomo Sharingan and mastering the reversal technique, Che had stopped worrying about anyone in Yunin village, including AI and Kurabi. Beneath his humble exterior, Che was bursting with arrogance. Who knew what would happen when his power reached its peak? Still, if AI managed to pull through, Che might have to show him some respect. After Che left, all that remained was a desolate landscape of rubble. After a long time, a scarred hand reached out from the debris. Slowly, AI crawled out, covered in dust and blood. Looking at the ruined battlefield, AI was filled with despair. He was right, anyone who could kill the Eight Tails was not to be underestimated. Che was practically a human-tailed beast. AI forced himself to his feet and stumbled toward the rear. He was slightly relieved that Che had spared his life, but a feeling of dread soon washed over him. As AI retreated, a young Kyumo ninja wearing a tall blue hat rushed up to him. "Tutai, what are you doing here?" The ninja, Dodai, was a close subordinate of AI's father, the third Raikage. He had a rare bloodline limit called melting release, and was a jonin despite his young age. The third Raikage had entrusted Dodai to AI for support. I lost. Go tell father I want to go back to the village and train with Bai. AI said, his voice barely audible. On the way to find Tutai, he had seen the defeated Kumo ninjas, the ruins, and AI's severe injuries, and he understood that the Kumo ninjas' winter offensive had failed, but Tutai didn't mention any of that. Instead, he told AI something shocking. Iwagakure has invaded our homeland. Tutai lowered his head, his eyes filled with anguish. He could see how broken AI already was, so he hesitated to deliver this cruel news, but he had to, for the sake of Yunin village. AI stared blankly, and Todai continued, the village defenses are weak. To protect it, Reikage-sama used the heavenly transfer technique to teleport in front of Iwagakure's forces and fight them alone. It's been 2 days. Reikage-sama sent me to ask for reinforcements, ordering the troops stationed in the Land of Frost to return home immediately. He also said, that if he falls in battle, you will inherit the title of 4th Reikage. AI was stunned. First the front line was shattered, now his home was under attack. The successive blows were too much. AI collapsed, unconscious. Tutai desperately caught AI's bloody body, melting release, rubber shield. Tutai wove hand signs and spat out a ball of rubber from his mouth. He enveloped AI, leaving a gap for him to breathe, then raced back toward the village as fast as he could, carrying AI on his back. Chapter 96. He runs away and he chases him. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the way back to camp, Che ran into Asuma and his 3 reinforcements. Bro, Che. Tonghua rushed up, checked Che over, and grinned, just like my big brother. Taihua visibly relaxed too. Asuma asked, you took down that whole 1,000-man squad? Che nodded. Yep. Asuma was used to Che's crazy strength by now, so he wasn't too surprised. Leading the reinforcements was Minato himself. He'd assessed the battlefield situation and said, AI's 1,000-man force was here. I'm betting that slowing down their offensive was a smokescreen for this attack. Good thing I was here to stop them, Che said. Their armies wiped out, but what about AI? Minato asked. Che's answer was unexpected. Didn't feel like dancing around with him, so I just blasted him and left. He's probably dead. Minato, not sure whether to laugh or cry at Che's nonchalant attitude, said, well, let's go check it out. This time, we're going on the offensive against the Cloud Village. Che followed Minato back to the battlefield. The Konoha ninjas were speechless at the sight before them. A huge chunk of the Frost Kingdom's rocky plateau, about the size of a football field, was just gone. The rocks had been pulverized into rubble, forming a new mini-mountain range. Che activated his 6 eyes, surprised. He's still alive. That lightning chakra mode is tough stuff. Minato figured, maybe the lightning chakra helped absorb the impact. Then, curious, Minato asked, what kind of move was that? It was like a tailed beast bomb. Che held up his hand, showing the dark blue spiral. It's a Rasengan combined with my bloodline ability. Minato shook his head, smiling. You're really putting my Rasengan to work. Che grinned. Can't help it. It's just too damn effective. Minato laughed, pleased his jutsu was being praised. Then, getting serious, Minato addressed the troops. Keep pushing forward. We're going to counterattack while the Cloud Village is down. This time, we're going to hit them so hard they'll think twice about attacking again. That the Konoha troops were pumped. After all, they were led by the legendary Yellow Flash, Minato Namikaze, and this new powerhouse, the white-haired demon Uchiha. With 2 heavy hitters like that backing them up, the Konoha ninjas eagerly followed Minato's orders. They charged onto the Frost Kingdom plateau, heading straight for the Cloud Village camp. Along the way, they met no resistance. It was like the Cloud ninjas had abandoned their defenses. Minato pieced things together. Cloud Village is pulling back their defenses because of that last defeat. Doesn't add up. They were still sending troops to the Frost Kingdom, probably over 10,000 strong now. Losing 1,000 wouldn't make them fold. Could be, something's happening on their end. Minato's intelligence was top-notch, and he deduced the truth. He immediately ordered, forget defense. Full speed ahead. We're taking the Cloud Village camp. Che saw Minato's plan. He wanted to use this opportunity to push the Cloud Ninjas out of the Frost Kingdom and back into the Land of Lightning. Usually, it would be impossible, but with Che and Minato leading the charge, this was their chance. Che was sure this would be his last fight on the northeastern front. Soon, they reached the camp. On the Cloud Village wall, Dodai, alerted by his sensory ninjas, just reached the top when he saw the Konoha troops. Just 1,000, but those two are here. Damn it! Why now? Todai had already ordered the retreat. With AI out cold, Todai, as the third Rakich's right-hand man, was in charge, but getting an army of 10,000 to retreat took time. Todai had already sent out the first wave of 3,000 soldiers with AI. The plan was to move the second wave of 5,000 Cloud Ninjas, the main force, next. Don't stop the second group. Keep moving. Todai barked. The remaining 2,000, with me. We're holding the wall against the Konoha ninjas. That the second group of 5,000 ninjas was vital to push back Iwagakure in the Land of Lightning. If they got stuck in the Frost Kingdom, Cloud Village would be in danger. That's why Todai decided to evacuate the second group first, while he and the third group held off Konoha's pursuit. Melting style, rubber wall. Dodai spat out a huge amount of rubber onto the fence, reinforcing the defenses. A thick layer of rubber covered the wall, creating an elastic barrier that could deflect most physical attacks. Even standard ninja tools couldn't penetrate it. Todai had done everything he could. Now, all he could do was hope. The Konoha troops reached the camp. They began their assault. Various ninja tools, shuriken, and explosive tags flew towards the wall, but most bounced off, and the tags didn't do any damage when they exploded. Todai breathed a sigh of relief. With double their numbers and the terrain advantage, we can hold them off. Asuma pulled out his trench knives and tried to break the rubber, but the Cloud Ninjas defending the wall pushed him back with their jutsu. For a moment, the Konoha assault seemed to stall, but they had two powerhouses. Che ignored the ninja tools and jutsu raining down from above. He walked straight to the wall, made a pistol gesture with two fingers, star. Boom, star. The rubber barrier shattered, along with the wall behind it. A hole big enough for an army appeared. Minato grabbed his flying thunder god kunai, tossed it over the wall, then teleported in, slaughtering every Cloud Ninja he saw. Spiral Flash Super Round Dance Howl 3. Led by Che and Minato, the Konoha offensive was devastating. The Cloud Ninjas were outnumbered and outmatched. Todai realized defeat was inevitable. Seeing the second wave of troops successfully escape, he ordered a full retreat. However, the retreat quickly turned into a rout. The Cloud Ninjas scattered, leading to even more casualties. Even Todai wasn't spared. His melting style was great for defense, but against Che's raw power, it was useless. Che's impact far exceeded the rubber's ability to rebound the force. Todai, hiding inside his Humoyu, was crushed. The 2,000 troops were nearly wiped out. Only a few dozen managed to escape across the border back into the Land of Lightning. Chapter 97 Return to the Village. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Asuma charged ahead, eager to cross the border and pursue the enemy, but Minato stopped him. Confused, Asuma asked, "We beat them. There's no danger in chasing them down. Why are we stopping?" Minato explained slowly, crossing into the Land of Lightning would be an invasion. We need Hokage-sama's approval, and he probably wouldn't give it. That old man. Asuma grumbled, frustrated that they'd let the Kumo ninjas escape after having them on the ropes. Che wasn't surprised. He figured the war was finally over and had no intention of sticking around the battlefield. Minato announced the withdrawal, and everyone headed back to the Konoha camp in Yuno country. Back at headquarters, Orochimaru heard the news of Kumogakure's defeat and retreat and just smiled and nodded. Minato, puzzled, asked, "You don't seem surprised." Orochimaru pulled out a photo and some intel, saying, "My spy in Iwagakure village sent this. I knew Iwagakure was planning to hit the Land of Lightning while we kept Kumogakure busy. It was confidential, so I was the only one in the loop." Minato nodded, confirming his suspicions. Kumogakure's home turf had indeed been raided. A glint of satisfaction flashed in Orochimaru's golden eyes. Winning the war was good for him, as the commander-in-chief. I'll ask Sarutobi-sensei to order a full withdrawal. You should get your troops ready to move out. Orochimaru turned to his desk to write a letter, and Minato left to inform his troops about the retreat. The Konoha ninjas cheered. Minato seized the moment and announced a celebration banquet for that night, with all the reserve supplies up for grabs. Long live Minato-sama! The soldiers shouted with fierce joy. Watching from the crowd, Che noted that Minato was more popular with the Konoha ninjas than the cold Orochimaru. Asuma clapped Che on the shoulder. After Che lifted the restriction, allowing Asuma to touch him, he asked, "What's up?" Asuma said, "My treat for barbecue when we get back to Konoha." Asuma had gotten to know Che, Copper Fire, and Iron Fire well on the battlefield, so treating them to a meal back in the village was a natural thought. Che agreed, "Barbecue sounds great." "You got it." Asuma and Che were regulars at Barbecue Q. Copper Fire and Iron Fire exchanged smiles. The war on the northeastern defense line was finally over, and everyone breathed a sigh of relief. That evening, the celebration banquet went off without a hitch, just as Minato had envisioned. Everyone except the necessary guards gathered around bonfires, which warded off the winter chill. All the food and drinks were brought out. Some tipsy ninjas started dancing around the fire, adding to the festive mood. The man behind it all, Minato Namikaze, sat peacefully leaning against a tree, reading and occasionally looking up to smile at the revelers. Minato was an exceptional ninja who lived by the 3 ninja prohibitions. No alcohol, no luxury, and no sex. No alcohol meant no drinking before the age of 18, and moderation after that, with no exceptions for overindulgence. No luxury meant a simple life, without chasing extravagant wealth or possessions. No sex meant staying away from brothels unless the mission required it. Minato stuck to these rules, but he didn't impose them on others. His teacher, Jiraiya, broke at least the first and last prohibitions, and Minato would only gently chide him at most. Besides, this was a celebration, so the alcohol ban could be bent a little. "Minato-sensei, why don't you have a drink?" Che, full from the feast, walked over to Minato and saw the book he was reading, The Legend of the Gutsy Ninja. "Drinking would affect my judgment. We're still technically on the battlefield, so I need to stay sharp." Minato shook his head calmly. "Besides, I'm not much of a drinker anyway. And Kushina has a really good nose. She'd smell even a drop and give me an earful." Minato smiled ruefully, but his face lit up when he mentioned Kushina. "I wonder how Kushina will react when I get back to the village." Che backed Minato's stance on alcohol, saying, "I hate drinking. It makes my head fuzzy." "You're not even old enough to drink. How would you know?" Minato asked, confused. Che just shook his head and avoided the question, saying, "After we get back to the village, Teacher Minato will be one step closer to that position." Minato's face turned serious. He looked around, making sure no one was listening, and asked, "Why are you bringing this up?" Che smiled and said, "I hope that when Minato-sensei takes over, he can change the policy towards the Uchiha." Minato paused, and then said, "Let's talk about that later." Che had simply overheard Copper Fire and Iron Fire complaining that they would probably be assigned to the police force when they got back, so on a whim, he found Minato and brought up the Uchiha situation. Seeing that Minato didn't want to discuss it, Che casually changed the subject. "Anyway, what book are you reading, Minato-sensei?" Minato held up the book, showing the title to Che, and said, "The Legend of the Gutsy Ninja is one of my favorite novels. I really admire the protagonist. Jiraiya-sensei wrote it, by the way." "I know." Che chatted with Minato about the book for a bit, then left. After Che left, Minato closed his book, looked at Che's retreating figure, and murmured, "Change the policy towards the Uchiha." Minato was lost in thought. After the celebration banquet, the Konoha army didn't evacuate immediately. With permission from the 3rd Hokage Sarutobi Hiruzen, they began a phased withdrawal, leaving some troops behind for garrison duty. Che's team was among the last to leave, even though he wasn't assigned to stay. By the time it was their turn to retreat, spring had arrived. Outside Konoha's gates, villagers had gathered to welcome the returning heroes, including the relatives and friends of many of the soldiers. Che spotted Home waiting eagerly and raised his hand to wave. Hong was so excited she forgot about holding back and rushed to hug Che. "I told you I'd be back," Che whispered into Hong's ear. Chapter 98 Chidori. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hong squeezed Che in a hug that lasted a good 10 minutes. Hong Song blinked at Che, then glanced around and noticed his clothes. "Why are you still wearing that old suit?" "The one I bought you, right?" Che was indeed wearing the lightweight outfit Hong had picked out for him last autumn, even though early spring was still chilly. Che grinned. "Yep. Because you bought it, I can't bring myself to take it off." "Oh, you sweet talker. I'll take you shopping later," Hong said, but her smile gave her away. As they walked, people kept recognizing Che. "Hey, that's Che Uchiha. What a talented young man." The compliments never stopped. Each time he was recognized, Che would offer a gentle and humble greeting. Gentle and humble, that was the persona Che had cultivated since childhood. As long as he wasn't in a position of power, he could usually keep up the act. Plus, ever since his interactions with Minato on the northeastern defense line, Che had started imitating him, consciously or not, always wearing a friendly, harmless expression. Che strolled through the bustling streets of Konoha with Hong, soaking up the relaxing atmosphere. The contrast between the lively city and the brutal battlefield was like night and day. The war in the northeast had calmed down for now, but the western part of Konoha was still under attack from Sunagakure. Because of the difference in war preparations between the two countries, Konoha's overall strength was far greater than Sunagakure's, but it was initially overwhelmed by Sunagakure's intense war mobilization and attacks. After the war in the northeast ended, the Hokage had immediately deployed a large number of troops to the western front. Rumor had it that the Hokage also wanted Orochimaru to go to the western defense line, but Orochimaru had refused, saying he needed to focus on developing ninjutsu. Che was pondering when he should visit Orochimaru when a familiar voice called out from behind. "Che, long time no see." "Kakashi, it has been a while," Che replied, recognizing the voice before he even turned. Kakashi hadn't changed much physically, but his personality seemed colder, more mature. "I've developed a new ninjutsu. Wanna see it?" That was the first thing Kakashi said to him. Che flashed a bright smile. "Already?" "Of course, I want to see what you've got." Che turned to Hong. "Hey, I'm gonna take off for a bit. Let's go shopping later." Hong gave a pouty nod, clearly annoyed. Che playfully pinched her cheek. "I'll be back soon. Head on home, okay?" Hong left, grumbling under her breath. "Damn Kakashi, I finally get to see Che." Kakashi gave a sheepish smile. "Sorry to interrupt. Looks like I made Kurenai mad." Che clapped Kakashi on the shoulder. "It's fine. She'll get over it. I'll just bring her back some gifts later. Come on, I'm itching to see this jutsu." Kakashi winced. "Hey, easy there. That hurt." Che laughed. "My bad. I just got back from the battlefield. Guess I haven't learned to lighten up." Kakashi gave him his trademark deadpan stare, his serious facade instantly replaced with a look of exasperation. To everyone else, Kakashi was a distant genius, but to Che, he was just a regular friend. Kakashi liked it that way, too. At least there wasn't as much distance between them. He knew that the power gap between him and Che was growing wider and wider. That was why he was so eager to show Che his new ninjutsu, as if to prove that he wasn't being left in the dust. The two of them made their way to Konoha's training ground 3. Kakashi stopped about 20 yards from a wooden post. "Gonna show me here?" Che asked. "Yep," Kakashi confirmed. Then, Kakashi began weaving hand signs. Che activated his 6 eyes, watching closely. Boar, hare, monkey. After Kakashi completed the sequence, a large amount of lightning chakra began to gather in his hand. The blue energy crackled and sparked, emitting a piercing screech. The lightning chakra stimulated Kakashi's body, and he shot forward toward the wooden post. Snicked, that the wooden post was easily pierced by Kakashi's hand. Kakashi cut off the chakra flow, completing the demonstration. Che analyzed the technique with his 6 eyes. "Not bad. You've combined form manipulation and the nature transformation of lightning release." Kakashi withdrew his hand from the post. Yeah, I got some inspiration from Minato-sensei's Rasengan. What's the name of this technique? Che asked. Chidori, Kakashi said, walking toward Che. Because the sound it makes is like 1,000 birds chirping. Fitting, Che said, applauding. This technique has got to be at least A rank in difficulty. The Hokage-sama personally approved it. It's an A rank ninjutsu, Kakashi confirmed. Alright, Kakashi. You really are a genius, Che said with a grin. Kakashi gave a self-deprecating smile. Coming from you, that's almost insulting. Che waved his hand dismissively and changed the subject. When you use this technique, does the speed ever feel too fast? It's good for fixed targets, but what about moving ones? Kakashi's eyes widened, then he nodded. You picked up on that. Yeah, that's a problem. You got any ideas on how to fix it? Yeah, just get yourself a Sharingan, Che joked. Kakashi, lacking his Sharingan, simply rolled his eyes. Knock it off, Kakashi sighed. Be serious for a second. This has been giving me a headache. Che's smile faded, replaced with a serious expression. The method is simple: strengthen the nature transformation of lightning release. Use the enhanced power of the nature transformation to compensate for the power from the high-speed thrust. Kakashi looked thoughtful. The method sounded easy enough, but it required a lot from the user. Kakashi couldn't come up with a solution right away, so he just kept the suggestion in the back of his mind. Che formed 3 hand signs, condensing a Chidori in his own palm. Kakashi was already taken aback, but what came next shocked him even more. Che emitted a blue light from his free hand, and the wooden post that Kakashi had just pierced suddenly rose up from the ground and shot toward Che. Che seized the opportunity, thrusting his Chidori forward and piercing the wooden post a second time. Too bad I can't teach you my tsang. Otherwise, letting the enemy approach at high speed instead of thrusting might also be a solution. Kakashi was stunned. It seems, you've gotten even stronger on the battlefield. Che. Chapter 99 Lord Orochimaru. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Che said, think of it as my bloodline's limit. I just can't teach it to you. Even if Kakashi had the magical ability, unlimited spells are not something you can just pick up. Spells and ninjutsu. Different animals, ninjutsu, you just need chakra. Even if you don't naturally have a certain chakra affinity, you can learn to manipulate it with practice. Spells don't work that way. Spells are imprinted in your brain at birth. The spells you can use are fixed from the start. All you can really do is learn how to use them better, so, a spellcaster's strength is basically predetermined. Kakashi wasn't expecting Che to teach him this power. He was just blown away by what Che could do. Kakashi knew he was talented, but he also knew that just copying others would never get him where he wanted to be. He had his own path to forge. Alright, I've seen your new ninjutsu, time for me to bounce. Hong's gonna kill me if I'm late. Che said goodbye and headed to find Kurenai. The next few days, Che chilled out, mostly hanging out at Hong's place. After fighting for half a year, you gotta take a load off, right? And by taking a load off, I mean eating, drinking, and petting the cat at Hong's. Nothing else. Sunday, Che finally made his way to Orochimaru's research lab. The sign outside was ancient, and Che wasn't even sure if Orochimaru was still there. He walked inside and sensed Orochimaru's presence. He went downstairs and found Orochimaru waiting. I knew it was you, Che. Seems you haven't forgotten your long-lost assistant duties. Orochimaru smiled, licking his lips. Che said calmly, wouldn't dream of forgetting Orochimaru's commission. With your current strength, I'm not sure I can afford you. Orochimaru stared at Che with his golden eyes. Che considered this. Is that so, Orochimaru? Orochimaru flicked his snake-like tongue across his lips again. You are quite interesting, Che. Orochimaru turned and walked deeper into the lab. Follow me. Curious about what we're researching this time, Orochimaru asked. Che guessed. Next phase of body modification. Che's 6 eyes picked up faint signs of transformation within Orochimaru, but Orochimaru shook his head. Compared to what we're working on now, body mods are small potatoes. Che was intrigued. If it's so top secret, why let me in on it? Orochimaru looked back at Che. Like I said, you're interesting. Che entered the lab and saw a person strapped to an operating table. The guy had dark skin, definitely from Kumogakure. Looks like Orochimaru hadn't forgotten his experiments from back on the northeastern front. He'd brought a few test subjects back with him. The Kumo ninja was completely restrained and gagged. When he saw Orochimaru, his eyes went wide with terror. He struggled and whimpered. Orochimaru smiled at the subject. Don't be afraid. It'll be over soon. Orochimaru grabbed a syringe filled with a light green solution. The solution pulsed with vitality and chakra. Che also sensed a new chakra signature, like a bloodline limit he had never seen. Orochimaru, in his white coat, approached the subject. If it wasn't for the evil smile and the subject's terror, he could have passed for a doctor. Orochimaru injected the solution into the subject's arm, then stepped back. The subject began to thrash violently, almost breaking free, but then, his movement stiffened. Suddenly, a thick tree sprouted from the subject's arm. The roots dug into his flesh, using him as fertilizer. The subject died instantly, blood splattering onto Orochimaru. Orochimaru turned around, his white coat splattered red. Blood trickled down his face, making him look like a monster. Care to guess what this is? Orochimaru looked at Che, amused. Che replied, could it be, the legendary first Hokage's wood release? Correct. The wood release of the first Hokage. Orochimaru nodded, wiping the blood from his face. I cultured cells from the first Hokage, Hashirama Senju, and made this solution. I injected it hoping to create a ninja who can control wood release. However, Hashirama's cells are too dominant. Everyone rejects it. Nobody survived the transplant. Che had some scientific knowledge himself. Maybe it's the rejection. What if they were raised with it from a young age? Tried that. Orochimaru shook his head, then looked at Che. Remember when the Ninetales almost broke free? Che nodded. Of course. Then you understand how powerful the Ninetales is, Orochimaru sighed. The other tailed beasts are not even in the same league. I once snuck into Yunin village and released the Eight Tails. But even with the Eight Tails running wild, it was nothing compared to the Ninetales. You fought the Eight Tails yourself. You know the difference. Che nodded. True. The Eight Tails is strong, but not on the same level as the Ninetales. So, the Ninetales has always been a sword hanging over Konoha's head, Orochimaru said. That's why, over a decade ago, Lord Sarutobi wanted to recreate the first Hokage's wood release to suppress the Ninetales. Che looked surprised. I see. So you're contributing to the village. Orochimaru smiled and continued, but all the test subjects cultivated from infancy died, so the experiment was shelved. This current experiment is a collaboration between Danzo and myself. Che asked, you sure you should be telling me all this? Orochimaru said, you're my assistant. It doesn't matter if you know. Che stepped forward, observing the body. I have a feeling this experiment is going to be difficult. That's why I need your help, Che. Orochimaru opened his hands. Chapter 100 Infinity. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Che agreed without a second thought. Things had been pretty quiet lately. As a jonin, he couldn't really take on everyday tasks, what with the war mobilization and all. He needed to be ready for the front lines, so, besides hanging out with Hong, he mostly had downtime. Che figured he'd spend the next while training and doing research at Orochimaru's lab. Orochimaru's eyebrows quirked up when Che agreed. Che-san, a pleasure to collaborate with you. Likewise. Che was still assisting Orochimaru, but now he was considered a partner, not just an assistant. The two of them then dove into experiments involving Hashirama cells at the lab. After wrapping things up for the day, Che headed home. His Uchiha residence, not Yuhi Bene's place, Senwifei, perched at the door, stared him down, meowing several times in a disgruntled tone. I'm back. Che reached down and scooped up the three-tailed beast onto his forearm, gave its head a pat, then pushed open the door. he packed his clothes and stuff into a backpack and took it all over to Hong's. "Che, what's all this?" Hong looked at the bags, big and small, with a puzzled expression. Che walked in like it was nothing, stashed his luggage, and said, "I'm moving in. My place is way too far from the training grounds and Orochimaru's lab. I'm over here every day anyway." Hong's face flushed crimson. "Moving, together?" "Yep, that's right," Che confirmed with a nod. Even though he came around daily, living together was a whole different ballgame. Hong was flustered. Blushing, she protested, "You're just showing up, why didn't you say something?" Che, still putting stuff away, just grinned. "I knew you wouldn't say no." Who said I wouldn't say no?" "Get out. Get out." Hong yelled, trying to shoo him away. Che chuckled. Getting pushed out by Hong was a far cry from fighting the eight-tailed head-on all day. Thump, star, the door slammed shut. "Hey, my stuff's still inside." The door swung open again, and his bags were tossed out. "Fine, I'll just sleep on your doorstep," Che called, then promptly flopped down. Hong, peeking through the peephole, saw him actually lying there and quickly opened the door. "Why are you being so ridiculous? Get up, the ground's filthy." Hearing this, Che sprang up, spun around, and asked, "Filthy? Where?" That he was spotless. Hong, surprised, asked, "What's with you?" Che just walked into the house, grabbed Sugar, the cat, and started playing with it. Hong could only shake her head, pick up his stuff, and bring it inside. "You can have the guest room. It's been empty forever. Needs a good cleaning." "Okay, I can do that," Che replied, still holding bait on. Then Che let Sugar go, and the sugar ran away in a swish. Che turned to Hong and said, "Let me answer the question you just asked." Che pulled Hong to sit on the sofa, raised his right hand and said, "Here, stretch out your hand." "Huh?" Hong looked confused. Come on. Che urged, shaking his palms. Hong looked at Che's eyes. He certainly didn't look like a hooligan, so Hong reached out and leaned forward dubiously. At this moment, Hong's palms stopped strangely within easy reach. "What's going on? Why can't I touch it?" Hong opened his mouth in surprise. Che smiled and explained patiently, "To be precise, what you encounter is the infinity between you and me." "Why did my hand stop?" Hong didn't quite understand what Che meant by infinity. "Rather than stopping, it should be said that the closer you get to me, the slower you go." Che continued to explain, "But I can get closer to you, just like this." Che said, interlocking his 5 fingers with Hong. Hong instantly reacted from his doubtful emotions, blushed, took out his hand and cursed, "I knew you were going to act like a gangster. I'm not doing this just to demonstrate to you." Che defended himself with a smile, while leaning forward to look at Hong. Hong stared at Che's eyes at a loss. Che added, "And these eyes, they can see through many things. These two were originally my secrets, but I still chose to tell you." Hong felt the trust in Che's words and couldn't help but feel a little moved. Che said sincerely, "Because I feel that these things cannot always be hidden from you, and I am strong enough now to protect you and protect this secret. Of course, there are some specific details. I don't think the time has come yet, but I will definitely tell you all in the future." Hong nodded and said, "I've always known that you have secrets. I've known them since I was a child." Che smiled, pinched his soft and red face and said, "As expected of my desk mate. TCH, then Asuma and Enko were also your tablemates." Kurenai said jokingly. "Ha ha ha ha, they are different from you." Che laughed and then explained. Hong asked, "Oh. What's different?" "I like you, but I don't like them." Che's straightforward words surprised Hong. When she heard the words "I like you," her face turned red. "No. I won't talk to you anymore. I'm going to prepare dinner." Hong fled into the kitchen in panic and started preparing today's dinner. Che looked at Hong's back and laughed, then leaned on the sofa and waited for today's dinner comfortably. Tonight's dinner is marinated wasabi octopus and barbecued pork tonkatsu ramen. When the fragrant smell came, Che opened his eyes and wandered to the dining table to sit down. He leaned his head on one hand on the table and looked at Hong's busy figure. Red first served the octopus and ramen on the table, and then went to feed Sugar the cat food. Then Hong walked back to the dining table and saw Che looking at him with a smile on his face. Hong was furious. He said he likes me, but he didn't even want to help me. Hong opened her seat and sat down and said, "I'll definitely do it next time. Since we're all here now, I'll have plenty of time to help you in the future." Cut. Hong made a sound and lowered his head to eat the noodles. Che picked up a chopstick and put the octopus into Hong's bowl, and said softly, "Don't you like eating this? Eat more." Hong's voice was as soft as a mosquito. After the meal, Che helped clear the dining table, washed the dishes, and then went upstairs to the guest room to tidy up his room. Tonight, for some reason, Che slept very comfortably. Sleep until the sun rises high the next day. Che was knocked on the door by Hong and asked to come downstairs for breakfast. "Good morning, Red." Hong lowered his head and said hello. "Well, good morning."